As Above, So Below by John Eric Dowdle was released in 2014. I was able to recall it just barely based entirely on seeing the trailers in theaters at that year. It never struck me as a particularly interesting flick, due in part to the fact that I've never heard or seen anything about the film. No praise, no criticism, never a peep. I'm not even sure how I came across it recently. I've been going out of my way to track down some decent horror films for my library lately, and I suppose it just ended up in the pile. Regardless, I gave it a watch. The short of it? Surprisingly good. Scratches a good amount of my horror itches. The film is done found footage style, which is typically regarded as a shitty or lazy method for crafting horror. In my experience, it can be hit or miss. When it's done well, it's quite intriguing. It's not an especially creative take, but it can be a much more realistic one. I've always said this: good horror is hard to find, but when you do, it's a gem. Good found footage horror is even harder to find, and thus that much more rewarding. As Above, So Below, I consider to be one of those gems. Every film begins with a story that's essentially the string that the rest of the meat clings onto. This one is fairly interesting and fairly believable. It's actually loosely like National Treasure, funny enough. Toned down, of course, and with some grave encounters thrown in. The characters are mostly believable, and I'd say well performed all around. Some aspects to them are a bit underdeveloped, but I'd say the majority of it all works. The effects are mostly impressive overall as well. They're not special or anything, but they're convincing and entertaining at least. There are a few parts that were relatively amateur, but they're pretty pleasant overall for me. Not a great deal of jump scares. I can only recall a couple off the top of my head, but they're executed alright, I guess. The horror aspect of the film overall is, I'd say, very well done and pretty gripping. Honestly, I just didn't expect it to be as good as it was. I was pleasantly surprised. Definitely worth a watch, and definitely staying in my library.